He said, how long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Or cry out to you violence, but you do not save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounding. Therefore the law is paralyzed, and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous, so that justice is perverted. Can you identify with these words, brethren? Look in Jamaica today. Nothing but violence. We are one of the most violent nations on the face of the earth. So far this year, there have been maybe about 900 and... who is keeping track of the records? Maybe 950 murders. Last year there were over 900 murders. In a little country like Jamaica, they're killing people in the prisons, and we are now hearing about all the terrible atrocities and the immorality and the scum that takes place in our penal institutions. It's terrible what's going on. And when you look at the justice system, you realize that if you don't have money, you can't get justice in Jamaica. Am I right? Or are we totally isolated from those issues? It is a situation of Jamaica practicing the golden rule. He who has the gold rules. When you have the money, you get away with anything, it seems. If you are a poor man and you cannot afford fancy legal footwork and defense, you're in big trouble. And so many of us better make sure we keep away from getting in trouble with the law. Amen? Because if you don't have connections, and that's another thing, you have to know who is who in the society. You have to join one of the big lodges if you want justice, because half of our judges and lawyers are members of lodges. It's a sad state of affairs. Injustice. And for Christians, we sometimes struggle with the perplexing question as to why God allows these things for so long. The law being paralyzed. The law seems to be so ineffective and weak. Even the leaders of our land are not keeping laws of the land. And some of those laws need to change, and people have no respect for law and order. So things are really in a bad state. And we need to intercede for this country. But sometimes, talk the truth, brethren, you feel a little discouraged, don't you? Because you're praying and you're doing things and things happening, you know. But overall, the situation just seems to be getting worse. And you wonder, what's the answer? What's the solution? Where do we go? And so this prophet cried out to God and said, boy, God, something wrong. I am perplexed. I am distressed. This is your people, the king serving idols. The people are perverting justice, violence all over the place. What is the answer? God answered the prophet in verse 5 and said, look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. For I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe. Even if it were told you. The prophet must have said, God is going to tell me about the revival now. God is going to tell me about how he's going to send his spirit like he sent his spirit upon Zerubbabel. God is going to tell us how he's going to visit us again as he did when he came down on Mount Sinai and delivered the children of Israel and gave them his laws and delivered them from Egypt. God is going to tell me about revival. And so he was all attentive. But God said to him something that was very unexpected and unusual. Verse 6, I am raising up the Babylonians, that ruthless and impetuous people who sweep across the whole earth to seize dwelling places not their own. They are feared and dreaded people. They are a law to themselves, and they promote their own honor. Their horses are swifter than leopards, fiercer than wolves at dusk. And you can read the rest of it. But the description of them, these people, terrible and powerful, wicked idolatrous people were going to come raised up by who? Raised up by God to accomplish God's purpose. You think that Habakkuk was comforted by this? He had major problems. Because for one thing, Judah was very wicked, but Judah still had a form of godliness. Judah still claimed to worship the true God, although they had their idolatry. Just like Jamaica, syncretism, mixing up. There's no greater religious people than Jamaicans, you know. But we mix up serving God with rum bar, with gambling, with, you know, how much Christians buy lotto ticket? Let me see your hand. Sometimes we have a problem in that we don't know how to distinguish between what it means to be a child of the King and what it means to be a sinner, a man of the world or a woman of the world. We need to draw a clear line. And in Jamaica, that's the problem. We're very religious and superstitious. We have more churches, they say, per square mile than any other nation in the world. But we also probably have more bars and gambling houses per square mile. How can this be? Judah was like that. Mixture. Mix up bad. But Habakkuk said, at least we are not as bad as the Babylonians. The Babylonians are totally all out serving their pagan gods. Them wicked, they're proud, and they are ruthless. History tells us that the Babylonians were a serious set of people. They were not as bad as the Assyrians, but they were very ruthless. And they really just went into places and just executed, killed people, men, women, and children, and took over places and brought under their control. And they were moving swiftly. So Habakkuk said, God, you're giving me plenty of problem now.